Hello and welcome to this slightly late version of the Tech Guys Midnight Court at 9:35 a.m. Actually, I should say the Tech Guys Morning Court. I am your host, Pete the Tech Guy. Half fedora will travel, no Doctor Who scarf today because I'm running so late. Author of Hail Mary, the perfect Protestant and Catholic prayer, here on Good Friday to share an hour of talk and thought with you today. Again, I do want to apologize for being a little bit late. It was in a dynasty tournament at midnight, and it's been a little bit different. I've been on a bad losing streak, and I ended up winning big, but it took me till 3 in the morning to pull it off. So I just crashed. So I do apologize. Between taxes and such, it was a long day yesterday. But anyways, we are here for talk and thought and all of that stuff here on the Tech Guys AM Court. Delighted to have you. And I should remind you that the phone is working. The phone line is on. 888-9-FEDORA, 888-9-FEDORA. You can try and call in. Basically, I've programmed my 800 number to run on the home phone. So we'll put it on speaker and see if it picks it up. If it works, fine. If it doesn't, what have we lost? Of course, I got the phone over there, which is a bad thing, but we'll worry about that when the time comes. But anyways, let's get straight to topic number one, which is bye Bernie. Bernie Sanders decided that he just couldn't pull it off anymore. He couldn't keep up the scare anymore and decided to pull out of the presidential race this week. And I gotta say, I was a little bit surprised. I was very surprised. I'm not surprised at how Bernie was treated because, frankly, it's hard to, when you're a communist running for president, it's very hard to be complaining about fair play. I mean, think about it. You got a guy who didn't go to have his honeymoon in Russia after the Cold War, after communism fell, after the Russians were finally free from communism, and before they fell into autocracy with Putin. No, he went to have his honeymoon in the Soviet Union while they were still the Soviet Union, while they were still killing people who tried to cross the Iron Curtain. It's just ridiculous. It's just completely ridiculous that he's not called out for this, and that there are people who support him. I mean, think about this. There is no difference in my mind between honeymooning in the Soviet Union during the Cold War and honeymooning in Berlin in 1938. There just isn't. And that's because the only difference between Nazis and communists are communists have better PR. Communists have always had better PR. They've had expert PR. Let's not forget that during World War II, before World War II, I should say, the American Communist Party weren't all that big on the Nazis. Then the moment the Hitler-Stalin pact was signed, suddenly, let's stay out of this war. We should not be thinking about this kind of war. Then the moment Hitler invaded Russia, they literally did a 180, which is, as I've said before on this podcast, why there was so much unity during World War II. It's because the left hated Hitler too. Because if Hitler had not attacked Stalin, believe me, World War II, it would not be this united front that we were talking about. It would have been very, very different than what we had seen before. But anyway, so Bernie Sanders. So the guy was not treated fairly, just like before. The Democrats didn't want him. You had a million different candidates, and part of a million different candidates was the hope to thin things out for Bernie. And let's point out that President Trump himself thanked Elizabeth Warren for defeating Bernie. President Trump gave the credit to Elizabeth Warren for siphoning votes away from Bernie. And I think that's very, very funny, actually, when you think about it. But Bernie, the Democrats, once he had the lead, once it looked like he had a shot of winning, and he had a shot of winning, the Democrats went all in to stop him. Carville went all in. All of them went all in. And they didn't even try and hide it anymore. They did not. And the media went all in on it. Remember, the media was treating Bernie with kind of kid gloves early. They were letting the Democrats go after him, but they didn't want to go too hard because there was a possibility that Bernie would be the nominee. And remember, all these Democrats who were saying how unacceptable Bernie was, how terrible Bernie was, how absolutely unacceptable Bernie was, we're all saying, but yeah, I'll end up voting for him if he's a nominee. Yep. I'm going to vote for him if it's the nominee, because we got to get rid of Trump. I mean, yeah, he's a communist, and yeah, he would destroy the markets, and yeah, this, that, and the other thing. But we'll vote for him because Trump. All of them were saying that. All of them believed that. They would have. Don't let anybody fool you. They would have voted for Bernie in a heartbeat. And so you had attempt after attempt to get rid of Bernie. I don't know if you could say quite at the level that they played with Hillary Clinton, but in a way it was more open. The attempt to screw Sanders out of the nomination was a whole lot more open, but Sanders himself, people have had a few years to see him in action. And as they say, familiarity breeds contempt. And it was in one respect very heartening to see that Democrats had not actually reached the point where an open communist was acceptable as their candidate, but still, it was kind of tough. And now, of course, Bernie has the problem. Now the Democrats have the same problem they had before, is that Bernie people are crazy about Bernie. And these people are true believers. Remember the James O'Keefe exposés about people talking about gulags and stuff and talking up the Soviet Union. These people are Das Kapital, true believers. So now you have these people who don't like Biden, who don't like the Democratic Party, who are actually, in a way, in a situation where the Tea Party was in 2012, where Mitt Romney was the worst possible nominee. The establishment pushed him on us, and we had a choice between Romney and Obama. And I swallowed my pride and said, no, Romney was the worst candidate possible. I didn't like him because of several different things, but compared to Obama, there was no choice. So I covered Romney and voted for Romney. And most Republicans said, no, they couldn't do it. And though he got more votes against Obama than McCain did, Obama still won. And now they're going to have to try and win those Bernie bros back. And one of the problems, of course, is that part of the Bernie bro team are labor people. And there are a lot of labor people who have been very happy with Trump because Trump brought back a lot of manufacturing. And it looks like it's very, and the funny thing is, of course, Trump's warning about manufacturing going into China and so forth have now been very, very spiked, so to speak, thanks to the coronavirus stuff. In fact, the word out of Japan is that Japan is about to stop paying its companies to leave China and to come back to come back to Japan. They're spending millions on it, and you're going to see such an exodus from China. We talked about this last week. China is going to lose so many people, which is why they're going all in on this. But the labor people, you're going to have this conflict there because especially union members, a lot of union members really like Trump. And it's, and even some of the bosses have liked Trump because, again, Trump has backed labor. Trump has backed people. And when you're the average worker, I'm sorry, this connection's not very good over here in terms of my mic, not the sound, but the bottom thing. The bass just isn't feeling right. You have the rank and file that like Trump, and you have some of the leaders who like Trump because Trump has talked about manufacturing in a way that other Republicans haven't. And that's actually very important because if you're trying to win on an issue, you want allies on both sides. One of the reasons why there was more comity between Republicans and Democrats in the past is because you had conservative Democrats and you had conservative Republicans, and you had liberal Democrats, and you had liberal Republicans. I mean, they shared a culture. For example, when Christianity, right now, for example, today is Good Friday, one of the holiest days in Christendom. But a lot of Democrats aren't religious, don't follow Christianity, hate Christianity. Now, if you go to Black Democrats, very religious. You go to Muslim Democrats, very religious in a different way, and so forth. But the point is, religion is now a dividing line. 25 years ago, 30 years ago, that wasn't the case. So you would have cooperation because you would have cultural similarities. Don't have that now. So for labor, a Republican president who's pushing some of the priorities of labor, bringing manufacturing back, instead of a Democratic president who is saying those jobs will never come back. I mean, that's big. And in terms of getting what you want, getting things that help your members, that's important. So they're going to have a real hard time getting those labor votes. I mean, I don't think they're going to get a lot of the rank and file. And they're going to have a very hard time getting Christian votes. And let's face it, Christians do not abort and kill their kids as a general rule. There are some who do, but not as many. I mean, my son Daniel has a friend, Christian is his name, very Catholic. His father, retired colonel in the U.S. Army. He was the oldest of 4 kids. He's been married. Yeah, how long has Christian been married? What, 5 years? 5, 6 years. And they're about to have the wife's pregnant for their 4th kid. So think about that. They're going to have 4 kids under the age of 4. Think of Stacey McCain, 6 kids. Now, granted, one of them turned out to be a Bernie bro. You're gonna have an odd egg like that on occasion when you have 6. But that's still, on when it comes to voting, 5-1. Yeah, maybe one of those 4 might turn away from the faith, assuming they stop at 4. But the point is, the religious people are having kids, and secular people will maybe have 1. And unlike Idiocracy, the movie, we're not talking about just ignorant people having kids. You're talking about intelligent people having kids and teaching them intelligent things, which is one of the reasons why the left is so big on Islam and so big on illegal immigration, because when you're not having kids of your own and you're killing the ones that are coming out, you have to replace the bodies somewhere. There are only so many dead you can vote in Chicago to win, and that's only one state. So, they have their issues. So they cannot, then their coalition is so split up, they cannot afford to lose any bit of it. So it is going to be fun to watch them try and talk the Bernie bros into thing. And Bernie Sanders is going to insist on thing after thing on the platform, and they're going to give it to him. Because all Bernie Sanders has to say is, they've treated me unfair. We're going to stay whole. I'm going to go third party. And it's over. That's all it has. I mean, frankly, it's over anyways. I mean, look at Joe Biden. He's like practically I cannot adequately state how bad Biden looks and how he's not compos mentis. And when I see polls, and again, it happened again last night, someone was tweeting out polls talking about how Biden has such a large lead in the new polls. And I mean, let me read you this tweet over here. Same poll has Biden up 62-35 with college whites, with some of the most crucial voters in the midterms. And I tweeted back, and if you believe that Biden is up 10, I'm sure you'll be happy to wager me $100 on him and give me 10 points, right? And once again, I have no takers. Because while it's very easy to tweet about how big a lead Joe Biden has, when it comes to actually putting money on it, I know James Carville suddenly talking optimistic, how it's ours to win because of coronavirus. He doesn't believe it. He doesn't believe it. It's sort of like Tip O'Neill in 1980, when Reagan is winning big, how he goes in front of the cameras and says there's a great Democratic wave sweeping the country. And it actually saved them a couple of seats in California because the polls hadn't closed yet and the Democrats were depressed there. But he saved the House 1 or 2 seats. That's what you do when you're the House Speaker at the time. That's why Pelosi will say bullshit on occasion, because, I mean, that's her job, is to try and keep the House and win it. they're gonna have to satisfy the Bernie Bros, and they're gonna have to satisfy them to have any chance at all. Because not only couldn't they have to not have them vote for Trump, and they have to have them not stay home. And you got to realize that Trump's going to hit him on this. And now, of course, you still have the young lady who worked for Biden, whose name must not be mentioned by the media, whose name cannot be mentioned by the media at all, because Joe Biden must protect Joe Biden. I mean, do you really think that Donald Trump's not going to bring this up? I mean, he went after Bill Clinton. You don't think he's going to go after Joe Biden? The only difference is Joe Biden's not going to know what to say. It's going to be sad. It's going to be sad. But that's just the way it is. So bye-bye, Bernie. I really thought you would have waited till the convention, because if they decided that they had to replace Biden on the ticket and you had the most delegates of the people left, you would have had a case. Now they'll be able to replace him with whoever they want if they decide to replace him. But they might decide to replace him. I mean, he can't speak in complete sentences, and the only people who can be trusted around him are the MSNBC types who will give him softballs. Trump is going to chew him up, spit him out, and use him for fertilizer for the rose garden of the White House. It's almost going to be cruel to watch. It's almost going to be, and maybe that's what they're counting on. Maybe they're going to think, oh, we can't vote for Donald Trump. He's beating up on a cruel, horrible man just because he thinks he can run the country instead of this blithering, drooling idiot. I mean, that's what we're going to see here. Should we be overconfident? No, because the left will try and steal any election they get a chance. Remember, the president has to win beyond the margin of fraud. He can't just win. He has to win beyond the margin of fraud. And unlike 2016, the left knows he's coming. The left didn't know he was coming last time and got clobbered. None of the voting irregularities that you would normally see out of Madison or out of Detroit or out of Lansing were taking place because Donald Trump is going. Why risk a federal rap when you know you're going to win anyways? Well, this time they know he's coming. So they're going all out, which brings us to topic number 2, which is voter fraud and the Democrats' push for mail-in voting. And I got to say that of all the things the Democrats do, and this is actually, it's a kind of, what's coming in my mind is kind of a pet peeve, because I remember back in the days of gay marriage, when the big debate was going on about gay marriage, I had an argument that I was making, and no one seemed to be making it. Everyone was saying, you opponents of gay marriage, you're just like the Southern segregationists who had the miscegenation laws trying to keep people from marrying because one is white and one is black. And I kept arguing, no, actually, it's the people in favor of gay marriage who are like the segregationists. Because everybody understood that marriage was between a man and a woman. The segregationists redefined marriage to suit their cultural biases. Instead of marriage between being any man and any woman, they said, oh, it cannot be a marriage if it's this type of man and this type of woman. So they redefined marriage to suit themselves. And after they redefined marriage, they redefined other social laws, and you got Jim Crow. Gay marriage is the same thing. You had people redefine marriage in order to gain a cultural advantage. And now, of course, people are unafraid to define woman, because people did not understand that once you start redefining one word, you're going to redefine all. I mean, I can't wait to see some president redefine what a deficit is or a debt is, to say, oh, we have no deficit, we have no debt. We just redefined it by law. Hey, doesn't change anything. Well, we have a similar situation happening right now. And here's the situation. And let's go back a little bit. We had, before the election, people saying, Donald Trump isn't going to abide by this election. Donald Trump can't be trusted. Then after the election, Donald Trump cannot be trusted. Donald Trump is corrupt. Donald Trump is this. That's why you have all of these things like Lincoln Project. They're all out there. Donald Trump cannot be trusted. Donald Trump is colluding with the Russians. Donald Trump is trying to get money for his company. Donald Trump's trying to abuse the power of the federal government. And of course, you had the Bernie Bros over there, and big business is corrupt too. Big business is cheating. Big business wants to use the power of the federal government for their own dastardly ends. You can't trust big business. They're going to use their money to buy votes. And the NRA, you can't trust them. They're going to use money to buy votes, to intimidate people. They're going to do all these things. And of course, Donald Trump is trying to intimidate, trying to make deals with the Russians to change the elections, trying to intimidate Ukraine to get dirt on their candidates. Donald Trump trying to cheat. Donald Trump dishonest. Donald Trump, all of these things they're saying about Donald Trump, how he cannot be trusted, how the Russians are colluding with him, how big businesses are with him to get their cronies in there to get elected. So there's all these reasons not to trust Donald Trump. Yet if we put in a vote by mail system, none of them are going to try and cheat. Think about this for a second. There are literally hundreds of billions of dollars being spent by the federal government, trillions of dollars being spent by the federal government. Big business wants a big share of this. And we're told by the Bernie Bros, we're told by everybody else that, yes, we cannot trust these people. These people are corrupt. They get into institutions and they're only there for their own advantage. We've been told that Donald Trump is the most dishonest and dishonorable president there's ever been. He's working with the Russians. He's working against the Ukrainians. He's got $100 or so in stock in the company that's making the anti-coronavirus drug. It's all about cheating. Donald Trump is dishonest. Donald Trump is dishonorable. Donald Trump is all of these things. Yet you're going to institute a voting system that this dishonest and dishonorable person, with the help of all these powerful people, could manipulate, but you're insisting he's not going to do it. Seriously? You were trying to make the argument that Donald Trump is evil, dishonest, and will do all these corrupt things to get elected. Yet you want to put in a system that can be easily manipulated? I mean, we just had 100,000 people taken off the voter rolls who are not active voters, who do not exist as voters in North Carolina. And we have Judicial Watch, and I cannot say how much good Judicial Watch has done. Judicial Watch has been so good in trying to create clean elections. But literally, you keep telling me that the president is crooked. The president stole the last election. The president's trying to steal this next election. But let's have mail-in votes because nobody's going to cheat. You are implicitly stating that you believe that this Donald Trump that you hounded for 3 years, that the media hounded for 3 years, that you impeached because you said he was corruptly trying to influence an election, would not use mail-in ballots to cheat. That big business with billions of dollars at stake would not use mail-in ballots to cheat. That the Russians who would try to influence our election, that the Chinese who would try to influence our elections, that anyone else trying to influence our elections is not going to use it to cheat. Absolutely, positively not. There's no reason whatsoever to think that this person's so corrupt, so evil, that none of us should be trusting, would be thinking of cheating. Now, I think that's a really good question, why the left trusts Donald Trump so much. Explain to me how Donald Trump is so honest and so trustworthy that if you put in a voting system whereby anyone who can get something mailed to an address and grab that thing from an address and send in a ballot from an address, even if nobody's there anymore, even if the person doesn't exist, is not going to try and cheat. And it's just astounding that you're at this point. And that you're making this, and nobody is asking this question. I don't understand how nobody asks this question. I just do not understand how nobody asks this question. Because it's the most obvious question in the world. You keep telling us, big business, you can't have this regulation. Big business will take advantage of it. You can't do this. Donald Trump will take advantage of this. All of these things will be done to take advantage of the voting system, of the vote. All these systems, they're going to cheat, but not with this way. They won't cheat doing this. No. Nobody would cheat. And for those of you who do not believe that mail-in fraud becomes easy, I want to read you this piece from Inside Sources by Margaret Menge, and it's titled, Mail-in Ballots Make Voter Fraud Easy. I know because I did it. The coronavirus outbreak is wreaking havoc on American elections, as evidenced by the fight over Wisconsin's primary this week. And Wisconsin did, in fact, hold its primary this week. And I want to get back to that a little bit because it's another one of these really silly arguments that nobody is asked, although some people are asking the right question on this. One proposed solution is to move everyone to voting by mail, but President Trump isn't a fan. Quote, a lot of people cheat with mail-in voting, he said last week. He's got a point. I've done it myself. In 2011, when I was living in Palm Beach County, Florida, I decided to test the system. So I asked for 3 voter registration applications. I filled them out, listed 3 different names, 2 that I pulled out of my head, Rebecca Bungle and Hannah Ardnett, and my own name, Margaret Menge. I listed my real date of birth and made up dates of birth for the other 2. On the lines where the application asked for a driver's license or the last 4 of a social, I wrote none, as the instructions said if a person had neither of these. A few weeks later, I got 2 notices back saying applications for Rebecca Bungle and Margaret Mead could not be processed because a driver's license or social security number was not provided. But I also received in my mailbox a new voter information card for Hannah Ardenette. And the article has a photo of that. On the outside of my car, my mailman had circled the name and address and written a question mark in pencil, but still put it in my mailbox. A few days later, I checked the Palm Beach County Supervisor of Elections website, and sure enough, there was Hannah Ardnett listed as an eligible voter, a person who existed in history, the celebrated author of Eichmann in Jerusalem, but not a person who was in existence in 2011 in Palm Beach County, Florida. Not long after, with an election approaching, I called the Palm Beach County Supervisor of Elections and said I was Hannah Ardnett and asked for an absentee ballot. The employee on the phone asked for a date of birth, and when I gave her the information on my initial application, July 20th, 1991, she said she'd send one out. The absentee ballot for Ardnett appeared in my mailbox a week or 2 later. I called the former Florida Secretary of State in 2012 and asked him how it was possible that I was able to do this. Well, he said, in fact, the fact is they check the names of people applying to register for vote against several different databases, but they have no way to check to see if someone exists. That's just one way people can cheat with absentee ballots. There are many more. Last year, a political operative working for North Carolina Republican Congressman candidate Mark Harris was charged with fraud for directing a group of people to fill out as many as 1,000 absentee ballot requests on behalf of voters, most of whom were unaware the ballots were being requested. These people then collected the ballots, filled them out themselves. Harris defeated Democrat Dan McCready by just 905 votes, and though it was never shown that the number of tainted ballots was enough to account for Harris's win, the election results were thrown in and a new election was held. Republican Dan Bishop beat McCready in a special election by 2,400 votes. Also in 2019, a Democrat city clerk in Southfield, Michigan, was arrested and charged with 6 felonies for falsifying absentee ballot records to say that 193 of the ballots in one election were missing signatures or a return date, when in fact they had both. The correct records were found in the trash in her office. In the new $2.2 trillion coronavirus relief bill, Congress awarded $400 million to states to support elections, specifically to help pay for changes that need to be made to elections, including a shift to more voting by mail. But J. Christian Adams of the Public Interest Legal Foundation says that if states aren't careful, they'll be issuing a quote, open invitation to fraud. There are two big problems with votes by mail, Adam told Inside Sources. Number one are the sort of things we discovered in the Justice Department while I was there, of people voting the ballot for other people through undue influence. That's the first one. The second one is the voter rolls are a mess. Adams' organization has sued several states and counties for refusing to maintain accurate voter rolls, allowing the names of thousands of dead voters, felons, non-citizens to remain in the systems. Messy voter rolls make election fraud much easier, Adams says. PILF is currently suing Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, for allowing the same person to register to vote 7 times. It's the exact same name, quote, the exact same state of birth, Adams said, as well as the same address, but the city and state won't remove the extra registrations. In a vote by mail scheme, they'll mail 7 ballots. States, I've since discovered, have no access to any master list of American citizens. So if they check to see if Hannah Ardette is a felon or if she passed away, as they can access death records, but they have no way of checking to see whether an American citizen with that birth date exists. It's an enormous hole in the ballot security system. 8 years had passed. I assumed someone had taken care of Hannah Ardette by the rolls by now. But sure enough, when I checked the county website a few days ago, she was still there with a message that read, quote, "We have been unable to verify that this is your correct address. Please confirm or update your address with our office or use the website's change of address feature before voting in the next election." I won't be casting the fraudulent ballot, but I have to wonder, will my vote in the next election be canceled out by somebody who did? Now, Margaret Menge is a freelance journalist who's written for the Columbia Journalism Review, New York Observer, Miami Herald, the American Conservative, among other sites. Now, again, here's the contradiction. We are told by the left that Donald Trump can't be trusted, that big pharma can't be trusted, that big manufacturing can't be trusted, that none of these big corporations can be trusted. But we're also told by these same people that with billions of dollars at stake, neither Donald Trump, nor the Russians, nor big pharma, nor the big polluters, nor the big car makers, nor the oil companies, none of those people would use their millions of dollars, tens of thousands of employees, and undue influence to do what Margaret just here talked about on a massive scale. None of them will access the voter rolls to see who's out there. None of them will use their large organizations to find out who's still alive and who isn't. And absolutely none of them, of all these people who have a national reach, would use these methods to cheat in a voter mail fraud scam. Why wouldn't they? Tell me, why is the left unafraid of this? If they believe that these people are corrupt, if they believe Donald Trump is corrupt, if they believe corporations are corrupt, if they believe the Russians are trying to influence our elections, why are they so convinced that they would not cheat using those methods? The question answers itself. It's not because they're not pushing these methods because they think these other people won't cheat. They're pushing these methods because they already are cheating and already are working for them. This is and it's basic logic. And the fact, and it's the same thing about voter ID. Voter ID is racist. I haven't seen a single bank or liquor store sued for demanding an ID. In a society that will sue someone over anything, nobody has sued a bank because they asked for ID. Back in the day, Market Basket used to ask me to show an ID when I'd use my credit card because I purposely don't sign the back of my credit card because I want people to ask me for an ID. Because if I ever lose or forget my credit card, no signature, they ask for an ID. They used to do that. Why they don't do it anymore, I don't understand, but that's a whole nother story. Actually, I know why, because now the credit card doesn't get handed to the clerk. It's just inserted into the machine. So which I dislike that because I want people, I purposely, I don't like drive-thrus, for example. I like to bank in person because I like people to actually see me and recognize me. And normally I'm wearing my 12-foot scarf, so people tend to recognize and remember me because of it. But nobody was suing. You didn't see me suing Market Basket. You didn't see people suing banks. Where were the class action suits against banks for discrimination, for demanding an ID? Where were the class action suits against liquor stores for demanding ID? Where were the class action suits against check cashing companies for demanding an ID? You're telling me that not a single lawyer in the country, when you had people demanding, saying voter ID is racist, not a single lawyer decided to sue any of these companies demanding IDs on that basis? That's amazing. That's astounding. And that's really telling. And the lie is so blatant. And the main, and this is basically the big lie. Hitler always said, if you got to lie, lie big. This is the big lie that's being played with. Or to put it another way, yeah, they're going to cheat. Yeah, you know they're going to cheat. What are you going to do about it? It's just amazing that people are falling for it and not calling them out for it. So next time someone, if you're on a chat room, if you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, if you're on any place, and someone says to you, mail-in ballots aren't they're not for cheating, and says, so you trust Donald Trump? You trust big business not to cheat. You trust Donald Trump not to cheat. Nice to know it. Once you say that, watch them squirm. And have them try and explain why these people who cannot be trusted suddenly can be trusted when billions of dollars and the full power of the federal government is on the line. I think it's a great question, and I think it should be asked an awful lot more. But it's these guys playing heads I win, tails you lose. And that same game is being played with the coronavirus. As you have probably read, the estimated deaths keep dropping. Some of the big field hospitals that were being set up are not getting a lot of use because the number of deaths keep dropping. Now, part of this actually, in fact, in some hospitals, you're seeing people laid off. And the reason is because since people are staying in, a lot of normal accidents aren't happening. A lot less cars on the road, a lot less car accidents. People not going to bars, a lot less bar fights. Not people not getting drunk and doing stupid things. A lot less people working. You're not having work accidents. A lot of the normal accidents, from broken arms to drunken brawls to car crashes, are not taking place. Because when you're not active, if I'm sitting on this couch, I've been on quarantine now for a week. So that's right. I didn't even mention that. The last time between the time of our last podcast on Friday and now, I've been put in quarantine. Of course, you knew that if you saw the Monday morning podcast, the midnight podcast. But if you are not doing anything much than sitting on your couch and walking around your yard, you're not getting hurt. And if you're not getting hurt, you're not going to the hospital. If you're not going to the hospital, you're not using up all the different things that a hospital uses. So if you don't have as many coronavirus patients as you expected, you're just plain not as busy. And suddenly, nothing's going on. Now, again, we had the models that were saying there was going to be millions dead. And then there's going to be 100,000 of dead. And now it's looking like we're not even going to get to 100,000 in a country of 360 million. And remember, 360 million. Well, 350 million, 330 million, wherever. We'll say 350 for the sake of a round number. 10% of the population dead would be 35 million. 1% of the population dead would be 3.5 million. 1/10 of the population dead would be 350,000. 1/100th of the population would be 35,000. So we are talking about maybe at the max now, 3/100ths of 1% of the population, and it's not going to get that high by the way things are looking. Now, for myself, I think this is a good thing that all these people are not getting dead. I think it's a fine thing that we're not having all these casualties. But it's kind of like Schrodinger's cat. And you might, if you don't know the famous thing about Schrodinger's cat, if you have a cat in a box, the cat is theoretically both dead and alive. The cat, if you put in the cat with some poison, you don't know if the cat's eating the poison. So in theory, the cat is dead or alive at the same time, theoretically. Now, the reality is, if you know anything about a cat, and if it's the type of thing a cat would eat, the cat's going to eat the poison and die. But let's forget the reality of that for a second. We don't know if all of this stuff is the reason why these deaths aren't coming in, although social distancing had been programmed into these models. We don't know if it would have been different or not. And, for example, with looking at what's going on in Sweden right now, in Sweden, they decided they weren't going to make any rules, just use common sense. The restaurants and such are all open. And because of that, their economy is still puttering along. But they're also having more deaths, and things are starting to look bad. Now, because of that, people are hitting Sweden. And my thought is, I don't think I would hit Sweden over it. They took a shot. You take a shot. Everyone's doing this thing. You think this might work. Let's try it. Now, I'm not a big believer in using a country as a bunch of guinea pigs, but that's what Sweden decided to do. And we should take note of it and learn from what they did, just like they should take note of what's happened with us and learn from what we did. That's why you have 50 states all doing different things. Let's learn from these decisions. Let people make their decisions and let's see what works. Because until you know what works, you don't know what don't. Until something screws up, you don't know that it doesn't work. But as Richard Feynman once said, it doesn't matter how great your hypothesis or how elegant it is. If it doesn't match the data, it's wrong. If the facts don't match the data in the experiment, it's wrong. The theory's wrong. Well, before, when these things were coming up, you were saying Donald Trump is being too optimistic. He's not talking about the real amount of deaths. There could be millions of deaths. He's trying to lowball the number of deaths. He's trying to make a false sense of security. Now you have the same people who were accusing him of that, saying that, they really just overstated the number of deaths, so Donald Trump could claim victory. And ironically, more than a month ago, you might remember my story that I was talking about of Brer Trump and Brer Media and Brer Donkey and Brer Slow Old Goat Joe and Brer Honey Toad Clinton, all trying to throw Trump into the coronavirus briar patch, and how Trump was going to get out of it fine. This is actually starting to happen. You're now getting people saying, well, Trump just overhyped these numbers because he really wants to be shown as the hero. I predicted this on this very podcast more than a month ago. Go look at my site, the story of Brer Trump and Brer Donkey and Brer Honey Toad Bill and Brer Old Slow Goat Joe and Brer Media, and take a look at that. You will find it. You'll find the piece funny. You'll find the podcast funny. You'll find the podcast, by the way. I should point out, all the podcasts go into a playlist called Podcasts. So check that out. You will like it. But this is really funny, and I want to read you this piece at Ace of Spades headquarters. And if you don't read Ace of Spades, you really should. He's a funny guy. I've met him a couple of times. And yes, Stacey McCain is right. He does look like an Ewok. Of course, with my beard and so forth, I shouldn't be talking. But he is brilliant. And I want to read you this piece in whole. And I do want to apologize for the language, because Ace of Spades, he's not restrained in his language as I can be. Chris Hayes, 1 month ago. Trump personally pressured health officials to manipulate the numbers downward. Chris Hayes yesterday. Trump inflated the death count so he could brag when the numbers came in lower. Positions change 180 degrees in indecent space of a few days, but one position must always remain constant eternally. Orange man bad. And now he's quoting the Chris Hayes tweet. The most cynical interpretation of there's a tweet by Aaron Rupa, Trump. If we can stay substantially under 100,000 American deaths, which was the original projection, I think we did a good job. Chris Hayes answering that tweet. The most cynical interpretation of all this One I can't just bring myself to accept is that they rolled out the model showing 100,000 K deaths after they knew it would be less, so they could anchor everyone to that number and then take a victory act when only tens of thousands died. Now, I love the passive aggressive way he's made this tweet, by the way. The most cynical, I'm not making this interpretation, but this would be a cynical interpretation, but I'm not quite there yet. I am above these things. Oh, come on. Really, Chris? You're going to do this? Show some balls and just say it out loud and claim it as your own. Hayes was immediately criticized by many members of the media for floating what appeared to be a conspiracy theory. Quote, I said I can't bring myself to accept it, quote, he responded to one of his critics. Quote, but he's been very weird about coming in under the model in this unnerving, disassociated way. Here's Chris Hayes from March 9th slamming Trump for his, quote, happy talk and suggesting that coronavirus could be beaten. He went on to claim that Trump admitted he was, quote, personally pressuring health experts not to do the best thing in terms of public health in order to manipulate the numbers downward, down quote. At 5:37. That's in the video that he links to there. 1 month ago, Chris Hayes pushes the conspiracy theory that Trump is personally manipulating the numbers downward. Now he says Trump has manipulated the numbers upward. So which is it, Chris? It can't be both. The media and social media monopolists conspire to control public discourse by deplatforming and censoring anyone who utters a, quote, conspiracy theory, the true definition of which is any speculation that the left-wing corporate media disapproves of. But when they float their own conspiracy theories, quote, I don't see Twitter mocking this tweet as dangerous in spreading misinformation and conspiracy theories about cooked models and projections. I don't see Chris Hayes blocked from his account until he deletes this fake news conspiracy theory. Now, if someone on the right were to suggest that the models were merely wrong, not deliberately rigged, he would be censored. But left-wing conspiracy theories are always in fashion. Question, will Chris Hayes fans on the pre-drought follow him pushing this Trump tricked us with his overstated death toll figures conspiracy theory? I would guess that some will at least be mildly supportive of the notion that something like this is happening. Hey, if you're on Twitter, maybe flag this tweet for deletion. Alert Twitter that it violates the supposed rule about spreading misinformation about coronavirus. Of course, this rule only applies to the right, but Twitter has never admitted that. It's time to make them admit it. And that's from Ace of Spades. And right now we're seeing from Jennifer Rubin and others the heads I win, tails I lose business, which gets us to topic number 3. Right now, you have a lot of people hitting Trump because the unemployment numbers are through the roof at the moment. And of course, they're through the roof. We shut down the country. You actually had John Cryer of 2.5 Men. So say, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? Well, we shut down the country. The difference between the unemployment now and the economy under Obama is we shut down the country on purpose here. Obama was claiming he was doing a great job. He wasn't trying to shut down the country on purpose. He wasn't trying to sabotage the economy. At least we think he wasn't trying to. But I pulled a little Chris Hayes there for you. But the point being that, yeah, you want to say, gee, how was your 401k versus a month ago? Well, there's a pandemic. That's like claiming, gee, Hawaii doesn't seem like that nice a place to stay after Pearl Harbor gets bombed. Give me a break. But we're actually seeing people do that. So the economy is going bad. James Carville, as I mentioned earlier, we got this coronavirus. People aren't going to vote for 4 more years of this. Well, there's not going to be 4 more years of coronavirus. And he knows it. Remember, today is April 10th, Good Friday. This has been going on for maybe 5-6 weeks. I know it seems longer. And yeah, it seems longer to me too. But it's only been 5 or 6 weeks. At the beginning of March, things were normal. We were going to go. My wife and I went to an actual sit-down restaurant a day or two. Valerie, what day was it that we went to the Longhorns? Was it just before your birthday or just after? March 14th. That's right, March 14th. A few days before my wife's birthday, we went to Longhorn Restaurant. We sat down at a restaurant table and we ate. We had steaks and they were good. They were very good. And the place, now granted, the place wasn't crowded. People were already scared. And we left a very big tip because we knew that waitress wasn't going to get anything. And then, not only that, but that Monday, we went to Happy Jack's. We didn't? Or was it the day before that we went to Happy Jack's?
No, the restaurant shut.
Oh, yeah, we went to Happy Jack's the day before. We went there the day before the restaurant shut down. I stand corrected. And even then, later on, my wife and I went for a drive. We had a slice of pizza at Salisbury Beach. We drove up to Maine. We got takeout in Maine. We actually went to go and look at the ocean because my wife was a little down. Her birthday, couldn't go anyplace. So I said, well, we're going to go to the ocean. We're going to go look at the ocean. So we drove and looked at the ocean. Then we drove up the coast and we took some takeout from Mike's Clam Shack. We got the scallops, which are really good. Oh, my God. I tell you, when this is all done, we're going to go to Maine again. We're going to go to Mike's Clam Shack. I mean, I like scallops. Those scallops were really good. Oh, my wife is cheering because she knows we're going to Mike's Clam Shack again. But anyways, I digress. That was today is the 10th. That was less than 30 days ago. This isn't going to continue forever. I don't think it's going to finish. I don't think it's going to last beyond April. Now, I could be wrong. It might be May. It might even be June. I don't think it's going to be May or June. I think it's going to end in April. I think the next 3 weeks are going to do it. But now the economy's crashed. It's all Trump's fault. I mean, is it Trump's fault that this is happening everywhere in the world?
Yep.
Think about this. You don't have to have a whole lot of brains to figure out that that's not the case. But it gets even better. So now we have Jennifer Rubin says, because they're talking about trying to get the economy open by May 1st, and the president is already appointing a new coronavirus task force specifically tasked to reopening the economy, which makes sense. If this is going to happen in a few weeks, you want people planning ahead, saying, all right, these are the things that are going to come up. These are what we have to worry about. These are the hot spots where maybe we can't open everything fully yet. Because, I mean, this is something wrong, something that I've run into. Just because one person can't walk doesn't mean everyone should have to go in through the handicapped entrance. And I ran into this on Twitter where people were complaining that some Catholic priests were having private masses. Now, if you're an actual Catholic, the mass isn't all about me. Just to digress a little, the mass isn't about me. The mass is about worshiping God. The mass is the perfect prayer to God. When a priest says the mass, he is offering worship to God. When people attend the mass, we are offering worship as a community. I am happy that any mass takes place. Do I wish I could have a private mass? Sure. I would love to attend a private mass. But I would not, for one thing, I would not begrudge anybody for holding a private mass, because a priest should be holding mass. Priests should be holding their own masses while they're in quarantine. And if one or two people can go, that's great, because it's all about worshiping God. Now, the same thing with the reopening. If there are rural places where there's not a lot of things close together, where you can open this, where you have reason to believe, all right, this isn't going to be a pandemic here. You still might lose the odd person here or there, but we're still going to be able to reopen. Yes, by all means, reopen them. If you decide that this particular city or town, well, it's not ready here because of this condition or that condition, then you wait on those places. You don't kill everybody. You don't cut off your foot to cure athlete's foot. And I must admit, early on, I thought we were doing overkill with this. I thought that the cure that we're in right now was cutting off the foot to cure athlete's foot. And it does cure athlete's foot every time. But I thought it was overdoing it. And there's still a part of me that thinks it's overdoing it a bit. But I've deferred on this. I've said, you know what? I'm a pro-life guy. There are a lot of people who are in their 70s and 80s or have health conditions whose lives are going to be saved by these measures. If I'm pro-life, I'm willing to put up with a month of this so these people can live. If you're pro-life, you're actually willing to give up something for someone else's life. So yeah, I'm willing to do this. So I burn up all my vacation and sick time now. It happens. If I am doing that sacrifice and someone gets to live, I'll do that sacrifice. That's pro-life. At least that's how I've justified this. But now we're already seeing the left saying Donald Trump wants to open the economy and he doesn't care how many people die to do it. Now, again, there are 350 million Americans. If we open the economy May 1st and 1,000 Americans die because of it, that's not 1%. That's not 1/10 of 1%. That's not 1/100th of 1%. It's a minuscule amount of people. For example, in vaccinations, there are going to be some people who react to a vaccination. There are some people who are going to be allergic. There are people who are allergic to penicillin. Does that mean no one should have penicillin? No, of course not. There are some people who cannot take chemotherapy. Does that mean no one should have chemotherapy? There are some people who can react bad to anesthesia, so no one should have anesthesia. There are some people who die in car crashes. No one should have cars. We're not seeing these. This is the type of stuff we're seeing. And it's heads I win, tails you lose. And it's all because of what we've said on this podcast before, what I've written before. It's all, and what Ace said in his piece, it's all about the orange man bad. It does not matter what President Trump does. He will be painted as evil. Be painted as evil. Like, for example, with President Obama, when he would say good things about school choice, I cheered because school choice is good. Didn't do much about it, but he says, and I said, yeah, that's good. I'll give him credit for that. I've been known to criticize this Pope and some of his latest statements on climate change are interesting, to say the least. But, you 2,000 years of popes, you're going to get a lemon here or there. But pro-life, he's right there. Gay marriage, he's still right there. He's Catholic doctrine, he's right there. He still should be answering the dubia from the cardinals, and I'll have to talk about that some other time. But he's still, by and large, when he's right, I give him a cheer on it. When he says follow Christ, that's great. When he says, go to mass, show mercy, all these things are great. I love the year of mercy that he did and the indulgences that came from that. But Donald Trump, it doesn't matter what he does. This has become religion to people. And when something has become religion, you have to, and this is a little bit an unfair statement to religion, because in Catholic faith and reason go together. Faith and reason go together. Science is important in the Catholic faith because science, when you're actually doing science, experiments, observation, deduction, experiments to back it up, that's truth. Scientific truth is good because truth is Christ. God is not only love, but God is truth. God is big into justice. And we won't add in the American way there because God's not a nationalist. But, okay, God did choose the people of Israel, but we'll get into that's another discussion. I'm digressing again. That could be another very good podcast. But the point being that no matter what Donald Trump does, they're going to attack him. And he's figured out, and I love the fact that he's figured out, one of my favorite things about this president, and remember, I was a Ted Cruz guy, is that he figured out very quickly that it didn't matter what he did, he was going to be attacked. And frankly, after the election, if I'm still doing this podcast in 2022 or 2023, I will tell you exactly how the media could have defeated Donald Trump. And it would have been easy. Because there's a certain method they should have been using. They didn't use it. And I ain't going to tell him. And I ain't going to tell you because you'll tell them. I'm going to sit on that tight until 2023. And then I'll explain it because it's actually very easy. There's been people who've hinted at it, but no one's come out and said it. But that's going to wait till 2023. But the media, it's an obsession to them. It's like a drug. They have to get their fix. Yeah, it's more of a drug addiction than a religion. Because a religion, a person can convert if confronted with facts. And some people in media, so that has happened. Like, for example, a great example of that is Ted Cruz. At CPAC a few years ago, I interviewed him concerning this. And and if anyone had reason to not be with Donald Trump was Cruz, because he hit his father. And I don't know if I would have been able to be behind a guy who hit my father. I think I would come after a guy who would hit my father. In fact, I got the biggest fight I ever got into was some guy was talking about my father, and I just kept. He was bigger than me and stronger than me. I kept coming after him. He kept knocking me down. I kept getting up and coming after until someone finally pulled me away. Boy, did I spent more time on a canvas than an oil painting. But the bottom line is that he recognized that what Trump was doing was good for the country, and he was advancing causes that he supported, and he supported him. And he figured out that Trump really didn't mean anything by things, that this is the way he attacked. It's like Lyndon Johnson. Lyndon Johnson would swear at people and berate them. And Tip O'Neill was talking to one guy after Johnson just chewed him out for nothing. And it was, why do you take days over there? You don't understand him. 5 minutes from now, he won't remember he did it. It's just his only way of talking. This is Trump's 70. He's not going to change his ways. But like Biden, he's not going to stop sniffing people's hair. Like that wonderful thing at the Babylon Bee with Joe Biden cuts off nose in his mask. We can still snuff people's hair. But bottom line is the media is not going to change. They're going to keep playing heads I win, tails you lose. Trump's best move is to just call them out on it and do the right thing. And that's what he's been doing. He's been doing great. So hopefully we will open by May. And hopefully we'll see some sports back. And that brings us to our final topic, which is play ball, and not necessarily dynasty baseball, which, although I'm still pushing it, I've still got 5 league openings, 2 in my great teams league, 3 in my all lousy teams league, all 100 game losers. Only 40 games left in that season if you want to grab a team. We just had the Washington Nationals pick. Can't give away a Marlins team to save my life, but I want to talk about Major League Baseball's plan, which they have not yet totally embraced. They've not yet said, we're going to do this. They're saying, oh, we're just discussing this. But if they're smart, they're going to do it. The plan they're talking about is a shortened season, starting right away, but playing in Arizona. They'll play in the Arizona. They'll play basically in a hot area because viruses do worse in hot areas. You've got the main stadium for the Arizona Diamondbacks, and you've got the spring training parks. You play without fans, and all the players, the umpires, and coaching are quarantined for the 3 months. Basically, what we're all doing now in our homes, except for they're out and doing it. Now, I must confess, I am biased in this. I want baseball. I insist that baseball is the greatest sport there is. And yes, I live in New England. Yes, Tom Brady won 6 Super Bowls. Yes, football has become big because of Tom Brady, because we had the greatest quarterback of all time. And I'm waiting to see which station around here, which radio station is going to start carrying Tampa Bay games, because I will listen to them over Patriots games. I follow players. I was a Steve Grogan guy, and I'm a Tom Brady guy. I mean, I want the Patriots to win, but I'm a Brady guy. That's the way it is. But baseball, I'm a baseball guy. I want baseball to come back. I admit it's very, very greedy on my part. But this for baseball, this is their big chance. Major League Baseball started losing fans after around 1970. And I always argue that one of the reasons why the games they lost fans because of the arrogance of the players to some degree, not after the first contracts, but after the later ones, the strikes that hurt them very much. But the games got slower. And one of the reasons why the games got slower is because you had expansion. You had a lot more pitchers who really didn't belong in the majors, who got beaten up by you had a lot of hitters who didn't belong in the majors either, but you also had a lot of major league class hitters who were now batting against AAA class pitchers. And so more runs, games got longer. But they lowered the mound. The higher mound gives a pitcher an advantage. And in 1968, you had Bob Gibson just murdering people at the mound. You had the batting leader in 1968. It was called the year of the pitcher. Carl Yastrzemski led the American League with a batting average of .301, which is the lowest batting average ever for a league leader. The number 2 guy hit 290, which is just incredibly low. So they decided to lower the mound. And that gave the batters an edge, and they haven't lost that edge. You want to speed up the game? Raise the mound. But anyways, I'm digressing. Major League Baseball has been on the downslide for a long time because football's taken advantage. The big thing that football did was Monday Night Football. They made it an event. And once they made it an event, and once they did the NFL films, which was brilliant propaganda for the sport, which is what their job is to do, they took over. Football became an event, while baseball became slow and plodding to a lot of people. Not to me. I think baseball's great. I love it because you have to get those 27 outs. It doesn't matter how many runs you score. If you cannot get that 27th out to retire the other team, you're going to lose. That's actually a secret to how I play. I always play for the outs because I know I need so many outs to win. Major League Baseball has a chance not only to make money for all their people because the players would like to make their millions. And if they come back on May and use this plan, they will be the only sports team in town. I mean, yeah, there's Japanese baseball. The Japanese are still playing baseball. And you can watch Japanese baseball. It's great baseball. But imagine if you're Major League Baseball and you have May and you have June and you have no other competition. Everyone will be watching Major League Baseball. Some people will watch it because there's nothing else. Some people like me who are fans will watch it because we love it. But people will discover it and discover how wonderful baseball is. Now, baseball, of course, of all the other major sports, has one big advantage. It's socially distant everywhere except for at the plate. At the plate, you have the catcher, the batter, and the umpire. Now, you could even get rid of the home plate umpire in terms of balls and strikes because they use the computer thing if you really had to decrease the danger to the umpire in terms of social distancing. But you have the catcher and the batter, and they all got protection. The catcher's got all this protection on them. They're not really spitting on each other or talking to each other. The catcher could wear a little mask inside his mask. It's social distancing. Until a man's on base, you're socially distanced. Even when there's a man on base, the only time the guy goes near him is to try and tag him out. Baseball is made for a situation like this. This is their chance to get back big. I don't understand. I understand that people don't want to be quarantined away from their families. Maybe they can take their families with them, have them all quarantined together. Excuse me. But this is Major League Baseball's big chance to become America's sport again. If I'm Major League Baseball, I jump at it. If I'm the players, I jump at it. I know some players might not want to do it, and if a few players don't want to do it, and they augment the teams with minor leaguers, that's fine. And I'm not going to blame a player who says, this is a risk to my life. I don't want to take that risk. Granted, you're getting paid millions of dollars. And firemen put their lives at risk for a lot less. Policemen put their lives at risk for a lot less. And that the odds of a person as healthy as a ball player of dying from coronavirus are pretty damn small compared to someone like me who's just old and fat. But I'm not going to blame a guy. If they want, that's their life. They want to take the season off, that's fine. But if I'm baseball, I jump at this. This is the chance to become the sport again. And Major League Baseball, if anyone is listening, you do that. Think about this very carefully. You will never get, and this, I know it's a terrible thing to be taking advantage of something like this, but you will never get another chance to become America's pastime again. And believe me, baseball is a beautiful thing. It's a graceful sport. And there's time. And one of the reasons why I like the time, when I'm at the ballpark myself, when I'm with a friend, the last game I went to was in Atlanta, actually. I was watching the Red Sox play the Braves a couple of years back. I was with my friend, George Kelly, who's a big baseball fan too. And, George and I are both, in between pitches, we're commenting on this batter, commenting on that batter, and our wives are kind of shaking their heads. Look at the two of them. but it's the pure love of the game, and you get to and you get to think between each thing and say, well, this one do there, watch this one move here, watch this one move there. There's that confrontation. It's both the team sport because the ball is hitting the field, the team has to coordinate, and the confrontation, one-on-one, pitcher versus batter. It's great. If you haven't given baseball a shot, watch baseball this year a little bit. You will love it. I just love it. I can't talk up baseball more than I have just now. But Major League Baseball, think about this. It's a great plan. Baseball is uniquely qualified to do this. And if it wasn't for the fact that I'm going to have to work for a living again in a week, I'd be willing to go in that stands and risk the virus and watch all those games. I would be in heaven. I'm sure there's more than a few fans who wouldn't mind that risk themselves. But I say it's worth a shot. Well, that's all the time we have. I actually went kind of long today because I started opining about baseball because I love the sport so. I want to thank you for joining us here for the Tech Guys Morning Court. Remind you that the next podcast is scheduled for Monday at midnight, or I should say Sunday at midnight, which is Monday noon. The midnight court will actually be at midnight. After this week, I should be back to work, assuming that I don't show any and assuming I don't show symptoms, and there's been no sign of fever, which is the big symptom. And so far, God, knock on wood, and God bless us, we haven't seen any of that from my wife or my son. The three of us are on quarantine. If that keeps up, be back to work in a week, and then the Sunday podcast will move again to Monday at 12:35 a.m. because I'll have to start it when I get home from work. And I'll be probably a different background because my wife will probably be asleep. But you'll see me again Sunday at midnight. Until then, this is Pete the Tech Guy reminding you that you can find me at DaTechGuyBlog.com, DaTechGuyBlog.com, the Tech Guy Blog on Twitter, the Tech Guy Blog's channel on YouTube where you're watching this, unless you're watching it on the blog. You can also find me on the radio tomorrow at noon on WQPH 89.3 FM, hosting Your Prayer Intentions, the special Holy Saturday edition. It's already been taped. So if you have a prayer intention, and you're watching this on the blog, just put the prayer intention as a comment to this podcast or as a comment to the podcast on YouTube. If you want a private prayer intention, just put private, and we'll be happy to pray for your prayer intentions. Our next show is taped. Our shows are taped on Wednesdays. Here's the book. You can buy it. Put a couple of dollars in my pocket. I would not say no to it. Hail Mary, the perfect Protestant and Catholic prayer. But until then, this is Pete the Tech Guy saying thank you for spending some time with me. And the Tech Guy's Morning Court is now adjourned. Take care, everybody. Bye.